Not to be a Debbie Downer, but this summer's weather was pretty miserable, and honestly, a lot of the books we read weren't much better. We did end up diving into a bunch of romances. Some of them were really amazing and became some of my favorites, while others just kind of fell flat. But overall, I will say this month was definitely an improvement from last month, and I'm really excited to chat with y'all about all the hits and misses that we had from this summer. Now, again, I will say, we had some good books. We had some high highs, but y'all, them lows are something different. We won't say any names. Lucy score. Damn. But now, wrapping up all the summer books before we get to the spooky books, I do have about 5 or 6 that I want to touch on that I haven't talked about before. But before we get to that, I definitely want to thank today's sponsor, which is Curology. Now, Curology is a really cool online skincare program that creates custom formula as made for you. All you have to do is go on their website, you take their skin quiz, it literally takes a few minutes, and once you're done, it lets you know all the things that they recommend for your skin. And it's really cool because as your skin evolves with the products, you can reach back out to your dermatology provider and let them know if it's either working or if you want to focus on some other skin problems, and they'll alter your skincare regimen as your skin grows too. So that's one of the things that I love about Curology. I've been using them for a few months now. I worked with them before and I've been using it since then. And I will say over the last few years, my skin has been pretty good, but I still get pimples here and there. And I really like their program because whenever I do get pimples, I used to get really bad hyperpigmentation. But with the custom formula that I received, I feel like the hyperpigmentation goes away a lot faster. So I absolutely love that. And I feel like if you have any skin problems and you let them know the things that you're concerned about, you'll be able to find a product that works best for you as well. Now, if you want to try Curology yourself, all you have to do is use the link in my description box and start enjoying your new clear skin. Thank you again, Curology, for sponsoring this portion of the video. Now, I was going to go in order, but I have to talk about the book that I am most passionate about. There are just too many things that we need to talk about. The first one that I'm talking about is Curvy Girl Summer by Danielle Allen. Now, let's just get the pros out of the way because there are some really good pros, but there are some things in this book that I just could not get past. So with that being said, I did rate this book a 2.5 star. And before y'all start trying to fight me, first of all, know that I can fight. These skinny arms, they can do something, okay? I grew up with brothers. Let me explain to you the pros. First of all, I love the representation. Danielle, she is a black woman. She's about to hit her 30s and she's looking for love. She's tired of being single and she wants to go into this new decade in her life with the right person. But the thing is, dating is hard out here and her family is starting to pressure her. So just to get her family off of her back, she pretends that she already has a boyfriend, but really she doesn't. So now she has to go on all of these blind dates. And as she goes on these blind dates, it goes from bad to worse. So she enlists the help of a local bartender to help her kind of navigate these dates. So she goes to that particular bar every time she has a date and he kind of helps her with that. And as she continues to do that, they become closer and then eventually they start falling for each other, right? That's the premise. Now Ahmad, the bartender, he's also black. He's a good guy. He's hardworking. He's a family person. He's all around 5 stars. I love him. And with Danielle, I really love that in this book, they showed black representation so well. The black culture so well. She was for the people. She had 2 successful black best friends who were funny, witty, caring, always there for her, always picked up the phone to check on her and see how she's doing. Like, it was the sisterhood through and through. And I really appreciated that aspect of the book because it made me feel seen. It just felt like this was a space where I belonged. I understood how they were talking. I understood the things that they cared about and their jokes and stuff like that. That felt really good. And I will say with that, she also showed that representation with her family as well. So they would go to cookouts and she would talk about the food and how the family would talk. And I loved that because it felt very realistic. And I think with the author being a black woman, it just shined through in the aspect of her trying to talk about black culture. So I loved that. I also really like how the author did a really good job of explaining how different people deal with grief and the process of healing and how it's not always linear, how different people take a different approach and things like that. I felt like that was a great thing for readers to be able to experience. Though it's not super pertinent to the story, she does talk a lot about grief in this book. And I think that that was really well done. But now let's get to the cons. The cons. Okay, my thing is, everyone was telling me I'm gonna love this book because of the banter, right? Because Ahmad and Danielle had constant back and forth banter, making fun of each other, being friends. Oh, that's another thing I really liked. They were friends before they became lovers. I love that. I need that. Me personally, I feel like you have to set a solid foundation. And the best way to set a solid foundation for a love that's gonna last is to be friends with that person. Be your best friends first, you know? And it felt like they solidified that. It felt like they cultivated that type of energy before they turned it into something romantic. So I really appreciated that. But back to the cons. I just felt like the banter was meant to be funny, but nobody was laughing. I'm nobody. I wasn't laughing. I didn't think that it was funny. And I understand, like, you're reading a book. It's kind of hard to get jokes through. But the reason why I still deducted points is because Queen Abby Jimenez gets me to laugh. I audibly chuckle out loud, and I'm just reading words on a page, so I know it can be done. But I just was not laughing at the banter. Maybe once or twice, but it was like constant banter between them throughout the book. And I just felt like it wasn't funny, you know? It just wasn't funny. So that was a little disappointing. But the one thing that really upset me with this book is page 120. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. You know that I know that you know that we know what I'm talking about. She didn't have to do that man like that. She didn't have to. Okay, I understand being a girl boss, knowing what you want and stuff like that, but that was plain rude. Can you imagine? I don't want to say it because I don't want to give away the plot, but if you have the book or just look it up, page 120 was atrocious. Okay, that was not necessary. That was not necessary. Danielle, yeah, I'm talking to you. That was not necessary. That was so messy. Is this a safe space? Can I talk about it? If you're gonna read the book, stop here, because I need to say it to somebody, and you're my somebody, okay? So stop here. Okay, are they gone? Okay. Why was she on a date with that man? She sees Ahmad looking at her. He's jealous because she's on this date, right? She locks eyes with Ahmad. This style, right? Goes to the bathroom. He follows her to the bathroom. And in the office of this busy public bar, that's what y'all gonna do? And she's on a date with another man. And a good man. He's a good man, Savannah.
He's a good man, Savannah. A good man.
That just didn't sit right with me. That did not sit right with me. And then he bought her flowers. She left the flowers on the table. That was very messy. Okay, I'm all about feminist and doing what you want, being the girl boss of girl bosses, but that wasn't right. That was plain rude, okay? And after that, I just had a bad taste in my mouth.
It looks like you're enjoying yourself.
That was not right. If he was a jerk, if he was one of the bad dates that she had, I can completely understand. Or not completely understand. I don't know. I'd be more understanding. But he wasn't. He was literally perfect. He was a mod, but she just didn't have feelings for him type of energy. And then you're gonna, on a date, can you imagine? Take yourself out of yourself, Danielle. I'm talking to you, the author. Can you imagine somebody doing that to you? You're on a date with this nice man. He sees the bartender looking at him. Because I know this man isn't stupid. I'm sure he saw the eye contact or the energy between them. He makes eye contact with a beautiful bartender. Then he goes to the bathroom for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. And then y'all both come out at the same time? That's crazy to me. There's certain times when a book does something where I'm like, we're not the same. I cannot relate to you anymore. This is no longer a fantasy. This is no longer escapism for me. This is a cautionary tale. Yeah. So that's how I felt about that. I didn't appreciate that. The writing was already kind of lackluster, but that was a cherry on top for me. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't connect. Even before that, even without that section, I just felt like I couldn't connect with them as a couple. I saw them more as friends. So my heart wasn't in it, you know? My heart wasn't in it. But enjoy. I feel like it's a good book if you're looking for something light. It's not gonna change your life. It's just a good summer read that you'll never look at again. Go for it. That's how I feel about it. Can you tell I've had a lot of sugar today? Oh my gosh, but this next one here is a 6-star. Okay, I rated it a 5-star on Goodreads because that's as high as I can go. But in my heart, in here, it is a 6-star. It is sitting up there with Eleanor Oliphant's Completely Fine. This book literally changed my life. I was this girl before I read it, and I'm this girl after. We're two different people. This book is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. She was too stunned to speak. That book literally had me crying, laughing, disgusted at times. I'm not gonna lie, she didn't make the best decisions. But then I respected her, and just seeing her grow and evolve, That book is literally perfect. This is a memoir of Dolly Alderton, the author, and it just follows her life as well as her girlfriends' lives as they grow and evolve from literally adolescence to adulthood. It explains how, yes, romantic love is important, but also friendship and family, and how those can be considered unconditional love as well, and just her finding herself. It was such a beautiful story. Initially, when you're reading it, it feels a little bit chaotic and all over the place, but she ties it up so well. It all comes back together, and I just had such a wonderful time reading it. I'm not gonna lie to you, I sent it to at least 7 women in my life, and I told them, I know you don't read, I know you're not looking for a book, but I am telling you, this is a book you need to read. And I've told so many people, I will continue telling people, it is that good. If you are a girl, you need to read this book. You just need to. It is so good. But I did write notes. There are specific things that I want to talk about. I put like cons. Baby, there's literally no cons. The cons could not be found. But with the pros, first of all, she did this thing where after she told like some traumatic story, she would give you a recipe that related to the story, and it was just so funny. And I feel like I have to go back and read this book maybe 5 years from now, and I want to make all the recipes that were in the book. I also thought there were so many quotable gems in this book. So many like realizations that she found, and she walks you through the whole messy thing. There are points in her life, especially in her college days, for me personally, like how I felt, where she was so messy, so chaotic, where you're like, girl, does it get better than this? And then you see her get through it. And the fact that you had to go through all the nitty-gritty details, when you finally get to the other side, you appreciate her growth so much more, and you feel a little bit more connected to her. And I feel like writing like this puts you right in the middle of her life where she was. You literally feel like a fly on the wall at that moment in time in her life. And I think that that makes it so much more personable. That is not something that's easily done, especially in a memoir. But this author, she did such a wonderful job of putting you smack dab in the middle of where she was in her life. And though it really does focus on love, both platonic and romantic, it also focuses on grief and healing and being there for your family, being there for your found family. And I think that the way that she explained both her experience with grief as well as her friend's experience with grief, I thought it gave you a full, complex view of what it means to lose somebody. And I found somebody's quote on Goodreads that I felt literally summed up the book perfectly. And it says, "This book overall showed me how it's okay to not know who you are, and the different ways over time one can start respecting oneself, and how it's so important to realize that making impulsive decisions where other people may save you is not the answer. We must realize that sometimes you are the problem, and that is okay, and we are human too." Because again, as I mentioned, she made so many mistakes. She was like looking at life in such a terrible way, and you had to watch her realize that she was the problem, do something about realizing that she's the problem, go through those years of therapy, and come out on the other side. It just felt like you went to war with this woman, and you're so proud of how far she's come, and you not only like are proud of her, but you are also learning and acquiring lessons as she does as well. And it was just such a beautifully written book. I cannot gush about it enough. I swear to you, I will be reading this book at least 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, because I feel like at different stages in my life, I will be able to understand different parts of what she was talking about, because maybe it's just not something that I realize at this point, at this age in my life. And that's okay. I feel like the most special books in the world are books that you can come back to and learn something new from. And this is definitely one of those gems. I already feel it in my heart and soul. It is so good. Another good book that we read was Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. Now with this book, I gave it a 4.5 stars. It is basically a murder mystery or whodunit, but it also has humor and a little bit of romance. Now, 60-year-old Vera Wong is a no-nonsense kind of girl. She knows exactly what she wants. She looks at life as an opportunity every single day. She wakes up at 4 something in the morning. She goes on her walk. She's always trying to keep her body mentally strong as well as her mind, all while maintaining her world-famous tea shop where she sells all different kinds of traditional Chinese tea. In her spare time, she basically pesters her son about when he's gonna marry somebody, but this is all until she wakes up one day, goes down to her tea shop, and realizes there is a man in the middle of her tea shop. And instead of doing the thing that all of us would probably do, which is call the police and have them deal with it, she's like, no, I can figure out this crime all by myself. And she tries to add part-time sleuth to her many job descriptions. Vera Wong is something else, okay? She literally reminded me so much of my own grandmother. She is strong-minded, no nonsense, but she loves hard. She cooks incredibly. She cares about you deeply, and she's always gonna be there for you. And that is literally the quintessential grandma. I don't know if everyone can relate to it, but I know personally, like in Black culture, that is exactly what a grandma is through and through. And I felt like I was literally reading a book about my grandma. It was so heartwarming for me, because as she's trying to figure out who killed this man, she's unknowingly connecting 5 strangers basically to the crime, to the murder. She somehow makes these 5 people her family. They all feel connected to each other as well, as she basically blames them for the murder of this guy. So it's a really interesting dynamic, because on one hand, they love Vera. They can't help but love Vera. She's always there for them. She's cooking them these incredible dishes, and she's always trying to support them, but also she's accusing them of murder. So it's just such a weird duality of that. And I think that's what makes the book so funny, because they're so exasperated by her. And so are the cops. Like, the detectives and stuff are so tired of her, but they can't help but love her because she's so outrageous and exhausting, but she is loving and her heart is in the right place. She just doesn't always show it correctly. And I just thought it was such a wonderful read. I literally smiled the entire time I read it, but I will say I didn't read the physical book, though I have it. I listened to it on audiobook, and I think that you should definitely listen to it on audiobook as well, just because the voice actors did such a good job. They did a great job with the pronunciation of all the Chinese names and T's, and I really loved that, because I think as a reader, when you do it, you might not always get it correct, and I want to respect the culture enough to get it correct. So I really appreciated that. And also, like, the inflection of the voices and the timing of the jokes just was so perfectly done with the audiobook. So if you haven't read this yet, listen to the audiobook. I am telling you, you will have such a good time. I enjoyed it so much. I was literally audibly laughing while I'm cooking and cleaning and stuff like that, because I loved Vera's voice and I loved hearing the other characters, and like when they would get upset or when they were exasperated or when they were laughing, it made it that much more real, and I really enjoyed that. I also really loved the Asian representation. I know that the author, she is Asian herself, and she does such a wonderful job for people who are on the outside looking in, for us to understand and connect to their culture as well. Like, for one thing, when she was explaining all the dishes that she was cooking, she did such a good job with the descriptions that I felt like I had the food right in front of me, and I wanted to smell and eat the buns and stuff like that she was talking about. She did such a good job of that. And I also really appreciated how she explained an Asian culture, like, respect is only one way. You have to respect your elders. And I feel like that's how it is in Black culture as well. So I really connected on that front, because whenever they were trying to be stern with Vera and try to like build boundaries, they couldn't really do that because of the culture. And I felt like I definitely understood their struggle, because that's how it is in my culture too. So I thought that that was really funny. And it just adds, like, it's almost like an inside joke when you understand those type of nuances, you know? So I really enjoyed it. Overall, it is a cozy, unbelievable, really, mystery, but it's really good. It's so heartwarming, and you're definitely gonna love every minute of it. Like, there's this one instance where one of the characters, she kind of lost herself in being a mom, and she stopped doing the hobbies that she really cared about. And so Vera pushes her very forcefully, I will say, to go after her dreams again. And once she does, she like gets a job, but it's a very small gig, and she's trying not to be too excited about it, but she lets Vera know anyway. And she's like, oh my gosh, Vera, I got my first booking. It's nothing big. And as she's explaining that it's nothing major, like, don't get too excited, Vera's like, no. Do you think a man would do that? And she hit her in the head and was like, do you think a man would talk like that? No, he has a job. You have a job. And it's just like stuff like that made Vera so lovable. She was just so forceful, but her heart was always in the right place, and she was just so funny and loving. And that was literally to the T my grandmother. Like, if I said anything remotely negative, she was on me like that. And I don't know, it just felt so warm, and it felt like almost a forgotten memory that isn't mine, you know? It was just such a perfect book. And I think it's something that everyone can kind of relate to, because I feel like we all have that pushy older family member that has their heart in the right place as well, and they always like talk to you like that. So it might feel like a cozy hug for you too. But overall, I will say, I feel like this is one of the books that you should start with for spooky season, because it's not scary, it's not like anything too heavy, and it's a really good way to ease yourself into the spookier, more chilling books. You know how many times my tongue got twisted with that? That was like take 5. Now we're going back to not so good. So this next book is Fall With Me by Becca Mack. This is a book that came out this year, and the only reason why I read it, truthfully, is because the main character is supposed to be a Black woman, and I just felt like it would be really nice to see the representation. And though the author is white, I feel like she did do a really good job of showing the Black culture. Because if y'all remember, I read that Liz Tom Ford book, and she had a Black main character, and there was no representation to be found. The representation representation left the chat. She was literally a white girl with a tan. You would not have known that she had any cultural significance of any sort in that book. But I feel like with this case, Becca Mack definitely tried a lot harder than Liz Tom Ford to like pay homage to the Black community. So I appreciated that. But that's as far as it goes. I'm not gonna lie. The writing, the energy is the same as the Liz Tom Ford books, the Lucy Scores of the world. It's just not good. There's something about booktok romance. Where the heck did we go wrong? Like, I don't understand the dialogue. I cannot. Even though it is a spicy romance, there are spicy romances to this extent, like this spicy, where the dialogue makes sense, where the storyline makes sense, where you feel connected to the characters even more. But this is written so, I don't know. I just don't know. I hate it. There's no one in the world who talks like this. How is this written in a book? How are you typing at your computer saying that she said this, knowing good darn well that no one is talking like this? Dialogue is supposed to be something that someone said or had the potential of saying. These things that they were saying in this book was so outlandish, so ridiculously far from reality that I could not connect. Every time I read something cringy, it felt like ice cold water was being splashed on me because I was trying to connect with Jackson and Lennon. Those are the two main characters. And they connected kind of on the wrong foot. So she was going to celebrate her honeymoon by herself. She's a jilted bride and she just wanted to enjoy her honeymoon anyway. And he's next door with some random girl. And so they end up meeting at the bar. They have this one night stand and she plans on never seeing him again, except her new job is where he's at, and he's a hockey player. Like, she's the photographer for the hockey team. And so it kind of starts off as this enemies to lovers thing. Then they are forced to like get to know each other more and be kinder to each other because of this forced proximity situation that they're in. And then slowly but surely they get to know each other, the walls fall down and they fall in love, right? And I will say again, she did a good job of trying to show that Lennon is a Black woman who has cultural food, who has a curly hair routine. One big plus was that scene where he helped her with her hair. That hit me in here, I'm not gonna lie. That did something for me because that is like the peak of romance. I think that is so cute. It's not like she ended racism with it, but it was just really nice to see that she went the extra mile to say that he helped her with her curly hair routine. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, if I wasn't so well read, maybe this would be something higher, but it's just, I know that the quality of writing isn't that good, but I did appreciate that scene. And I also really like how it talks about found family, grief, healing, definitely healing, and the importance of knowing your self-worth. I feel like these type of books always try to push some really heavy message to justify how ridiculous the book is and to prove that it's like a good book. And it's just, you can't do that if the book isn't written well. Like, you have all the elements of a good book, but the execution is not there. It's not there. And unfortunately, this is one of those books. Again, I'm not gonna like knock her that much because I did enjoy this book more than I enjoyed like the Lucy Scores and the Liz Tom Ford. It was still outlandish and unbelievable, but it wasn't as bad as what I've seen beforehand. So I guess if you want to read it, it's, you know, not going to be life-changing or anything like that, but it can be fun, and it's nice to see a Black girl being loved on. So there's that. I also really liked how Jackson made a concerted effort to be really supportive of her goals and her dreams. I think that that's always really sweet in a romance book. I'm literally trying to remember all the things that I enjoyed, but it wasn't enough to where I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to read this author more. It just because like the overall experience I know isn't the best writing that I could see. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to be completely transparent with you. I wish I could be a little bit more kind, but this is genuinely my experience. So fight with somebody else. The last one up is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This book was just okay for me. It was like a 3.5. It's about Misery Lark. She is a vampire who is marrying the alpha werewolf. I think his name is Lo Moreland. And she's doing this to kind of create peace between the two species. But she's not some like saint. She's doing it for her own reasons. She has her own reasons. And you go through the story following her trying to solve that mystery while she's falling in love with Lo. Now, I really enjoyed this aspect of the book because I felt like when it came to the fantasy element, she, again, as she usually does, she took a scientific approach to it and said how they were kind of more realistic versions of vampires than the ones that we read about now or see on TV now. And I love that. As a science girly, I just love that. I love that she she always takes a scientific approach, because then it's more realistic. Then you can see it actually happening. And I felt like that was such an interesting part in her book. I didn't expect that, because when I heard that she was making kind of a darker romance, I just thought she was going to go full throttle with it, forget what she usually does, but she didn't. Like, she still kept the scientific aspect, and I just thought that that was very cool. What can I say? I am a science girl through and through, and that's an easy way to get me. I also like that it wasn't just romance that we were reading. I like that there was a subplot of mystery. Like, we were trying to figure out this other element of the book. It just added more depth to the story. As you're following them fall in love with each other, you're also really invested in this side quest that she's got going on. So I thought that that was cool. I didn't expect her to add that to the book as well. I will say though, the dialogue in this wasn't the best, and I do feel like the book kind of started off a little bit slow. It took me a few chapters to really get hooked into it, but towards the middle, maybe 60% mark, I was really invested. I'm like, okay, what happened? And also, I'm kicking my feet and giggling over here because y'all are falling in love. Like, I really enjoyed that. And I think that it was cool that she still kept like the quintessential aspects of both species, like vampire and werewolf, but still made it realistic. So then you get the element of fantasy, but also like you can see it happening in real life. And that was really cool for me. Now, I'm also still currently reading two books. I am reading The Lost Bookshop as well as Good Omens. I'm actually listening to that. They have like this production where they actually got voice actors and they have a musical score and everything. It's really good. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm only in like the first few chapters. It hasn't really gotten super thick, but I'm enjoying it so much. I feel like the voice actors are carrying it, so it's like the perfect thing to ease my way into the fall season. But what I want to talk about is The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. Again, I am not done with it, but you know how when you're reading a book, in your heart, a little voice is saying, it's a 5-star. It's a 5-star. I have that voice in my heart right now. It is so adorable. It is so good. Again, I did touch on it before in an older video, but basically it's connecting these three strangers to a lost bookshop, a bookshop that kind of keeps moving. So there's elements of magical realism, there's kind of a mystery element, and it's like found family, romance, things like that. And it's just so beautiful. And it's not even like it's anything overly romantic. It's just the writing is romantic. She's quick-witted, she's clever. The story intertwines so well. It jumps back from the past from a different perspective to the future from another perspective. And I just love seeing how the puzzle pieces are fitting together. I am just enjoying it so much. I've been reading it on my Kindle, so I've only been reading it at the gym, but it's getting to the point where like, I don't want to just read it at the gym. I want to read it when I'm home and stuff like that, because now I've gotten to the point in my book career that I read 4 books at a time. I read our book club book, then I listen to an audiobook, then I read something on my Kindle, and then I read a physical book. So I'm constantly rotating books, and each book needs my own attention, but this book keeps grabbing me by the throat and telling me to read it. So obviously I have to oblige. I'm just saying, it is so wonderful. I am enjoying it so much, and I know I'm not done, but I do think that you should read it. Oh my gosh, and I almost forgot. We do have to talk about this month's book club book. Now, I already did my live in the Patreon book club. If you haven't become a member, please become a member because it's a good time over there. But I do want to talk about it with y'all here as well. So we read Everyone Here is Lying by Shari Lapina. And it was just, you know, it was just a solid 3-star. It felt like the Switzerland of mystery books. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't awful. It was just present, you know? And let me just read you the synopsis. So it says, William Wooler is a family man on the surface, but he's having an affair, and after the affair ends horribly one afternoon at a motel, he returns home devastated and angry to find his difficult 9-year-old daughter, Avery, unexpectedly home from school. William loses his temper, but hours later, Avery's family declares her missing. Now, Stanhope is supposed to be a safe place, but the disappearance of 9-year-old Avery reveals a dark side of this close-knit community. You literally cannot trust anybody. Now, on the surface, I was like, oh, this book is about to be different. We're gonna have such a good time reading this. And we did have a good time, but I think it's just because we built this community. But the book itself was just okay. And I'm very surprised because The Couple Next Door by Shari Lapina is a book that I raved about. That was the first book that I read by her. And I really felt like that was the energy I was going to get in this book. And it just kind of fell flat for me. Now, what she did in The Couple Next Door, she kind of did in this book as well. She wrote in third person. The chapters were short and left you on a cliffhanger, so you wanted to continue reading. And you were kind of at a loss at at who could have done what they did, right? And I will say she did a really good job of confusing the heck out of us. Literally everyone looked sketchy, and there was like 5 everyones. Like there were so many people I was very suspicious of. I couldn't really pinpoint who did it, and I couldn't solve it on my own. But then the ending happened, and I was like,
Girl, I guess.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you're reaching a little bit, but okay. It just felt very unbelievable. And there was no character development whatsoever. There was no character development to be found. You weren't necessarily following the characters. It was literally almost like a clinical approach to mystery. You're just going through the detective work of that, and you're just trying to find out who did it. It's literally like a textbook version of Clue, the board game. There wasn't any depth in the story. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? There was just bare bones like storytelling. There was no character background, very minimal, just enough for you to suspect that they did it, you know? There was no actual connection with the other families, and it just felt, I don't know, not lazy, but very shallow for a mystery. And that was just my personal opinion. A lot of the girls in the book club also said the same thing, so that was just our take on it. But I do feel like it's a nice, easy summer thriller that you can just read just to read, but it's not going to change your life, you know? So there's that. Those are all the goodies we read this month. Overall, the highs were so high that I could just bypass the ones that weren't that great, and they were better than last month's book. So a win is a win, and I had a grand old time. Let me know what you read this month in August, what you're planning on reading next month in September, or I guess it's September now by the time you see this. So let me know what you're reading this month. I love y'all so much. I hope to see you not only back here, but also in my book club, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah! Bye. I feel so professional. I did so much research for these books. Not me being a real booktuber. Look at all the notes I wrote. I'm different, y'all. All right, that's it. I love you. Bye.